I am a youth pastor. I've been one for a little over a decade now, and love working with students. Been doing it since I was young enough that they could not tell the difference between me and them, like visually. I still am fortunate enough to have people tell me at my church that I still look like one of the teenagers, so that I will take that as long as I can get it. But at the same time, I'm now old enough that I don't have teenagers telling me I look like them, because they know the difference between a teenager and someone in their 30s. And so I love working with students, and a big part of what drives my passion for teenagers is they're so serious about trauma, and they're so we've noticed that in the older generation. This next generation, they are serious about identifying trauma, and the thing that breaks my heart is that they're so serious about identifying trauma and bad experiences, is that oftentimes those bad experiences become the lens through which they see their identity and live their lives through, and they're defined by it, um, and they're being discipled by TikTok before they even walk into a church, and so my belief is that what they really need is a gospel that speaks into the wounds that they've absorbed and taken on as their identity, and that's what G Shades helps to deliver. And so I'm really thankful to be part of creating a curriculum that can help speak to some of those identity wounds that these teenagers have these days. So that's a little piece of what I do and what I'm all about. So.
Mike, and tell us real quick. I know where you went to school, but tell us where you went to school and your background.
Yeah, I went to school at Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. Really cool. Studied youth ministry and there, and a little bit of psychology as well, and just loved that experience. But come from a ministry family. My dad's a pastor. My grandfather's a pastor. My great grandfather, you guessed it, is a pastor. And my dream as a kid was not to be a pastor. Didn't want to do that. I wanted to play for the Lakers. I wanted to pass the ball to Kobe Bryant and have him never pass it back. That was the dream. And then I grew to be 5'7", so I'm a pastor. And so that is my background.
Funny how God has his own way of putting us where we need to be. 5'7" will
Yeah.
not get you on the Lakers.
Yeah. For most, I mean, unless you're Spud Webb, but most of us are not Spud Webb. So,
Yeah,
there you go.
exactly.
Right.
So, question for you. We've got a lot of business owners and people in business here on the call. Tell us what role that business leaders could have with G Shades and how they help. Because, that's a lot. We don't think about that as business people. We sometimes don't think about what we can do to help teen ministry. So, if you would just run with that.
Yeah, so the way that I'll frame it up is it's my belief that if we're gonna shape the next generation, I think a lot of us want to, we need three things. We need the right God, we need the right people, we need the right tools. And we have the right God, so that's taken care of. But the other two things, the right people and the right tools, the way that that ends up kind of being framed up, the way that ends up kind of working is we've got business leaders here who you care a whole lot about the next generation, but until today, maybe you haven't really known how to help. And so you might think about your son, your daughter, what it was like raising them. You see the teenagers walk by your business and, your heart goes out to them. But, if you're, selling paint in your shop, that's, it's kind of hard to figure out how to connect those dots between what you do and in the next generation in your community. And so the way that it ends up feeling, the reality is many churches have the right people, but they don't have the right tools. And they have the right people, but they don't have the resources for the right tools. And so they've got all the right people in the world, and the right people end up getting burned out because they don't have the right tools to make that something that they have the capacity to do to actually disciple the next generation well in and outside of their church. And then you've got businesses, and there's business leaders on the call. And, for a lot of us, we've got the right resources, but we don't necessarily have the right people within our business to influence the next generation directly. That's just not the thing that God has called us to do, for many of us on the call. And so my thought is that, for our curriculum, $240 is what it would cost to sponsor a small church package for a church in your world, in your neighborhood, in your town. And that is a rounding error to a lot of us in business, right? At $240, that's a rounding error. But for a small church, that can be the difference between discipling teenagers well or not at all. That can be the difference between Deaconess Johnson, right? She's the right people, but that's the difference between her burning out because she's trying to run the youth group completely on her own while she's also, deaconess, and she's also doing the finances for the church, and she's also got grandkids of her own, right? That's the difference between her burning out, or catching her second wind in ministry, even though she's in her 60s now. It's the difference between a school culture. If you think about the local high school or middle school, it's the difference between the school culture being one of toxic bullying, versus one of kindness and grace, because one popular kid at school goes to a church that uses G shades, and now that kid sees life through the lens of the gospel and changes the entire culture of his school. And so you've got many churches, they want to pour into the teens, they got the right people but lack the resources for the right tools. And you've got many business owners who want to pour into teens and they have the right resources for the right tools but lack the right people. And so it's this, one is relationally rich and resource poor, and the other is resource rich and relationally poor. And that's just, to me, feels like a match waiting to happen. And it feels very much like part of the mission of Christian Community Connect is to find ways to connect those two together.
Like how you brought up connecting the dots. I always think about Romans 8:28 is how God connects the dots. He causes all things to work together for good, and he also brings all people to work together for good. Um, One other thing I want to do a little follow up on is talk about how and I know I've done some children's ministry in the past, and how difficult it can be to find curriculum that can relate to the kids. Because when you're 60, you don't think the same that you did when you were 15 and 16, right? So you got to have like a little refresher course. So explain how you kind of help with that. And I think it's a great thing where people don't have to go, I don't have to come up with all the ideas. Sometimes, they just need to get the idea and then they can take it from there.
Yeah, and that's what we create, right? That's what we create because we work with, the people who write our curriculum, myself and our contractors. We're youth pastors. We work with students all the time. And so we can connect those dots between where students are and where a youth leader or someone who wants to work with the next generation, where they are in their life stage. And we can help connect those dots. And then the timeless truths of scripture, the youth leader doesn't have any issue teaching the Bible. It's the two teenagers, right? It's meeting teenagers where they're at. That can be the tough part. And so what we create are message guides. We also do video messages, which is awesome because if you've got Deaconess Johnson and she has had a tough week or her health is a little she's feeling under the weather and she's kind of recovering from illness and all that kind of, right? She might be coming into youth group and she's feeling a little bit under the weather, and it's so nice for her. She can throw on the video, and the video is a 10-minute lesson that teaches the students engaging communicator on the screen. And then afterwards, she just leads a discussion with the kids, and she's got the game instructions right there with her because of the curriculum gives her the game instructions. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to play, and then she can send the kids home with a devotional or a Bible reading plan and all that kind of stuff. So to equip the small church leaders or even medium-sized church leaders with these kinds of resources, it helps them to meet students where they are. And because culture keeps changing, like every 5 to 10 years, like things like shift dramatically, right? Hard to
Five
keep
to
up,
ten
you know?
minutes.
Yeah, 5 to 10 minutes, literally, right? With social media, especially, and so listen, we're adults. We got things to do. We're not keeping up with every trend, right? But when you have a curriculum, it can help connect some of those dots and bridge the gap that exists generationally. And so that's part of what our team does.
Some of the people we have today online with us are pastors. And I know you target mainly small to medium-sized churches that don't have the full staffs. So explain to us in general how you help support the local church and how small and medium-sized churches can flourish a youth ministry by using G Shades.
So I was on a call with someone who's kind of checking out our curriculum yesterday, and she downloaded the curriculum. I gave her a follow-up call because I like to be really personal. I think the gospel is personal. I think we should be in business too. So I gave her a
Mhm.
call. Hey, wanted to make sure you're accessing those materials okay. How can I help? She gave me a call back, so I went to her voicemail because we don't pick up the phone if we don't recognize the number. That's a trap. We don't do that these days, right? So she gave me a call back, and she said, "Man, the reason that she is so interested in the curriculum, the reason that she went ahead and purchased it for her church is because there's this thing that we add in the small church package that is we want to give you a lesson plan that's helpful for when you've got 8 or 9 or 10 kids in the youth group environment, but we want to give you an adapted lesson plan too when 1 or 2 kids show up to youth group. And there's nobody that like people don't curriculums don't do that. But that's church, man. That's the reality. Kids are so
Yep.
overscheduled these days. They're so busy. Parents are trapped, whatever, right? And so when you've got 1 or 2 kids who show up, does your curriculum help you with that? And we think the answer should be yes. And so we really try to be very focused on helping small churches, and we do that in our price point, and we also do it in the resources that we create. We want to create something that's actually helpful for the actual small church instead of creating something that's helpful for large churches and priced for large churches, and we just ask small churches to pony up and drain all their resources to use something that doesn't even work for their context. So yeah, man, that's how we're trying to help small churches these days. And so far, we're getting the feedback that it's unique, it's different, and it is helpful.
Mike, again, I appreciate it. I appreciate your heart and know, and, we've known each other long enough now this year that we've talked enough. I know what you're doing. I love it. Again, as I started this interview off and talking to you, is that I know this is where we lose so many people that drift away from the gospel because they're getting tugged in so many different directions, and having a relevant, up to date, that something kids can relate to so they can change their glasses and see the light of the gospel through G Shades. And I love the name G Shades, and it's helping people see the gospel. And that's what keeps the world spinning. So thank you so much for your time today. I want to let everybody know, if you want to get a hold of Mike, there's a few different ways you can do that online at Christian Community Connect. You can go to the top of the webpage or the search bar. You can just type in G Shades. He's one of our advertisers and one of our sponsors. You'll be able to find him online at Christian Community Connect. Another way is that you can email him, and that's mike@gshades.org. Mike@gshades.org. And then the website is youthministrycurriculum.com. Youthministrycurriculum.com. Mike, again, thank you so much for joining us.